Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm the recruitment and retention officer here for all undergraduate programs at the John Molson School of Business. And today I'm just going to be going over the various processes, admission requirements, some do's and don'ts, and anything else you should be aware of for anyone who's interested in transferring from one faculty or program or certificate or anything to us at John Molson. The presentation itself is going to be broken down into three separate sections. So how to get prepared, again, the things that you should be aware of prior to beginning the entire process. We're going to be going over afterwards the specific admission requirements that you need to complete and satisfy, as well as the various courses that you can take that will count towards your ultimate John Molson degree once you arrive with us. So let's begin by how to get prepared and the things you need to know before you meet with us in the future. The thing that I like always highlighting is a student's current academic records, the unofficial records to be specific. Now, anyone has access to the specific records in question. Oops, I just moved my entire slide. We're going to go back. The entire records in question. So that's the unofficial transcript. So the unofficial transcript is visible on the student portal. Now, this is an example of a grad student, but the exact process is identical whether you're graduate or undergraduate. On the unofficial transcript is going to show you key pieces of information that you really need to be aware of. The first one is your overall performance for that particular semester. So how well did you perform on average if you combine all of your courses, final grades in that semester, whether it'll be fall, winter, or summer. And then the cumulative grade point average, it's the overall performance ever since you started here at Concordia University. It doesn't matter if you transfer programs, changed programs, whatever that may be. The combined grade, anything that counts towards your actual record, will be counted towards your cumulative grade point average, which is a key indicator for us when we're considering you for admission. The other thing to be aware of is it's going to show you what courses you've been exempt and or what courses you've been transferred from your previous institution. It's important to know that so you don't retake classes that wasn't necessary for you in the first place. So instead of taking additional courses that could have been a complete waste of time or potentially even hinder your overall transfer if you underperformed in those classes and you didn't even have to do them since the beginning, it's important for you to be aware of that. The other thing that I think is very important is the actual minimum credit requirement of your degree. So we do have three different types of degrees. We have the advanced credit program, which is typical for Quebec candidates. So that's around, 90 credits in total, about 3 years. We have the 120 credit program, which is known as the extended credit program, which is very common for international Canadian students. Those tends to be the students who are part of the 120 credit program. We also have the mature entry student program, which is about 108 credits. So for you to know the credits that you're in, it's going to give you then the ability to understand what program planning worksheet we could then provide to you to have a greater understanding of what you need to complete in order to graduate with a John Molson degree. So that's the important part of knowing what type of credit program you're in. It's going to be written on your offer of admission, but for anyone who forgot, who just want to double check, it's always on your unofficial transcript at the top of your unofficial transcript. Now, I was saying that was important is because we actually use internally for our own students these program planning worksheets. These program planning worksheets is a great visual way to understand the actual degree requirements, not only the number of credits that you need to complete and satisfy, but also the courses in which you need to actually complete and pass those classes. So this is an example of someone who's part of a 90 credit program who's interested in doing marketing. So you can see that the pillars are kind of separate. So you have the core commerce classes, the major specific courses, and the elective courses. Every single box on here has to be checked in order to qualify for graduation. If you haven't completed or checked any, or let's say you're missing one of a checkbox on this entire degree, you're not going to finish your actual studies. And for that reason, we do on a yearly basis interactive degree auditing with all of our students to understand their progression chart. So how well are they doing? How far are they off in terms of completing their degree and what their expected graduation timeline will be. But again, this is all internal use, but these actual worksheets are available to the public if they want to just see it and use it for themselves. So it's a tool that you could take advantage of, even though it's not necessarily designed for students who are considering transferring. It's really just for our own students. That kind of brings me to the page on how a typical John Molson degree is structured. It's based onto 3 separate pillars. You got the first pillar, which are the core business concepts that all students need to know and be aware of, no matter what program or specialization you're doing. We're then going to move on to the actual major specific courses, which are exclusives to the students who are specializing in that particular concentration. So someone who's in marketing won't have access to the finance classes, and someone who's in supply chain won't have access to let's say, business technology management courses. These courses are really exclusive to the student who's specializing in that particular concentration. You then also have the elective portion of your degree, which is part of our interdisciplinary integration that we've implemented in our new curriculum that was launched in fall of 2023, which is there to encourage students to have an entirely different way of viewing, learning, and handling things, because the actual workplace and the real world tends to be changing at an extremely fast pace, a pace in which we are not able to keep up with, and therefore you're going to see things that were not taught to you directly. But we can help you build that infrastructure and that mindset to tackle situations that you've never seen before. And that's one of the main philosophies of adding electives part of your degree. Electives are really courses that need to be taken outside of the John Molson School of Business. So let's start going over the internal degree transfer eligibility. So the actual requirements or things that you need to know in order to be eligible to apply as an internal degree transfer. Now, there are a few things to be aware of. Obviously, you do need to be a current Concordia student, an active current Concordia student. We only accept students into 2 separate terms. The first term is the fall. The second term is the winter semester. We do not accept anybody over the summer, so there's 2-term entry only. The other thing as well is that you need to satisfy all of our admission requirements 1 full semester prior to your intended start. So what does that mean in particular? I do have some examples here for you. A good example is if you want to join in the fall, you would technically need to have everything satisfied by the end of the winter term. That would give 1 full semester, which is the summer semester, where you're not doing any of our main admission requirements for you to qualify for entry in the fall. So what I'll do is I'll take these actual dates, because these dates are no longer correct, but the actual deadline is still correct. So you do need to submit an application by March 1st in order to qualify for fall entry. So if you want to join in the fall, you must submit an application by March 1st. Now, let's say you want to join in the winter. Now, technically, you would have to have all of our admission requirements satisfied, including the CGPA. When I say all, I really do mean every single one of our admission requirements need to be satisfied by the end of the summer term. That would give 1 semester in between where you're not doing anything to satisfy our admission requirements, which is in the fall term. Then we'll qualify you for transfer for the winter term in question. So let me close this up so that you can, so it makes it a bit easier to understand. So the rule of thumb really is like, if you want to join in the fall and you're taking courses in the fall, you could only transfer the following fall. If you're taking courses in the summer, the earliest possible time that you could do a transfer would be the winter. So if you take any of our admission requirement classes in the fall, you could only enter the following fall. If you take admission requirement courses in the summer, the earliest possible time would be winter. So you could just keep that. You don't necessarily need to understand the true logic behind it, but essentially you have to have everything completed 1 full semester prior to your intended start. So if you have everything, like let's say completed by the end of the fall, you're like, oh, I could transfer in the winter. No. You have the semester in between, which is the winter semester, where you're not permitted to do any of our main admission requirements to qualify for transfer. And then that would technically qualify you for a transfer in the summer. But since we don't accept anybody over the summer, you're then pushed to the fall. I hope that clears it. If there's anything else, you can always send me an email directly to clarify your questions. So let's go over the actual admission requirements for an internal degree transfer. There are 4 total main admission requirements that you need to complete and satisfy. The first one is you have to have a minimum of 12 credits completed ever since you started at Concordia. This is not on a semester basis. This is really ever since you started. The reason why is it then gives the ability for the university to calculate a cumulative grade point average, or also called often as a CGPA. This is a key pillar admission requirement that must be completed, and you need to hit a minimum of a 2.7 out of 4.3. Anything below a 2.7 is an automatic refusal for a transfer. This is the absolute bare minimum that you need to hit in terms of your overall performance. There are also 4 courses that need to be completed with specific grades attached to them. The 4 courses in question are microeconomics, macroeconomics, linear algebra, and calculus 1. Math 208 is known as Fundamental of Mathematics 1, and Math 209 is also called Fundamental of Mathematics 2. But the concepts you'll be seeing in those courses is linear algebra and calculus 1. In the past, prior to the launch of our new curriculum, we used to require students to complete Business Technology Management 200 or BTM 200. It is no longer a requirement ever since we completely redesigned and revamped our curriculum that was launched in fall of 2023, so September of 2023. The content of that particular class, BTM 200, is severely outdated and really doesn't reflect the technological landscape anymore. And for that reason, it's being phased out with our old curriculum. So students who have taken that course because they were told in the past that they needed it, we are currently still providing a bit of a bridge or a bridging program, you could kind of say, where that class will still be transferred and count towards your degree, but it will count towards a business elective. Once you arrive, it is not a core course that is required, nor that we will recognize. Now, this bridging is nearing the end. It could end at any time, honestly. It could end next fall or the fall after that. And for that reason, if you haven't taken that class yet, I would recommend for you not to take that class, because we're truly providing a temporary bridge to satisfy or help those students who were told in the past to take that class and it's no longer recognized. We are still recognizing it, but as a business elective. When it comes to the actual course requirements, now when it comes to micro and macroeconomics, Econ 201 and Econ 203, you cannot have a grade below a C- or higher. So that's the minimum grade you can have in that course to qualify for transfer. If any of those courses, either Econ 201 or Econ 203, has a grade below a C- and you satisfy all of our other admission requirements, you will be refused the ability to transfer to John Molson. So it's important that, again, C- is your lowest possible grade. In fact, John Molson, prior for you to transferring, considers a C- as the lowest possible grade. Anything below a C- is considered failed under our eyes. So C- is the lowest. It's kind of like getting a 50%. It's not, just to be clear. A D- is the lowest grade you could get, but C- in the eyes of John Molson. When it comes to the mathematics courses, now you need to have a combined grade between Math 208 and Math 209 of a B- or better. For example, you could have, let's say, an A in Math 208, and then you have a C- in Math 209. If you combine those two grades, it's a B-. Therefore, you satisfy our admission requirement. When we say B-, we truly mean a combined grade of a 2.7 out of 4.3. That's what B- is. But it just needs to be combined. Now, let's say you've been exempt from Math 209. That means you are only required to do Math 208. In that particular scenario, you would need to have a grade of a B- or better in that class individually. Now, let's say, lucky you performed quite well and you received an exemption in both of those classes. You're not required to do Math 208 and Math 209. Only in that scenario would you then be required to take and complete COM 214. Now, COM 214 is actually behind where I am, where my little video is, but it's COMM 214. You need to have a grade of a B- or better. COM 214 is business analytics, which is a heavy in math. It's a heavy math course. So if you think about the logic here, we're looking for a way to evaluate your quantitative skills within a learning environment that we could trust, therefore our specific learning environment. So if you've been exempt or you've completed those courses somewhere else outside of Concordia University, both in linear algebra and calculus 1, also known as math 208 and 209, then only in that scenario would you then be required to complete business analytics or COM 214 with a grade of a B- or higher. We're looking for an overall quantitative mathematical skill with a minimum performance of a B- or higher. If you've received an exemption in only one of those two, then that's not a requirement that's for you anymore. You would only need to have a B- or better in that missing math class, let's say math 208. Let me remove this so that don't forget. Another thing to be aware of, now this is not related to the admission requirements in question, so this is part of the transferability of your previously completed courses. Now, any course that you've done that's outside of our admission requirement courses that has a grade below a C-, like I said, John Molson views that as a failed grade or as a failed class, and therefore it will not be transferred or recognized by the time that you arrive with John Molson, to John Molson. So for example, let's say you've taken Bio 203, which is a nutrition course. You received a grade of a D+ in that class. You think it's going to count towards the elective portion of your degree, but once you arrive with us, that class is no longer considered, no longer recognized, and therefore it's not counting towards your elective. Now, there's a good and a bad in this particular scenario. Now, for example, let's say you received multiple Ds in some courses and you still satisfy admission requirements, you have been accepted, and you transfer to John Molson. All of the grades that you had below a C- are no longer counting or transferring. Therefore, it's no longer affecting your CGPA. So you get a brand new, fully updated cumulative grade point average with only grades that are C- or higher. So it could be both a good or a bad thing, but it's important to know that they're not counting towards your degree if it's below a C-, and therefore it's not counting towards your elective portion, which could extend your potential graduation timeline that you initially had in mind. That's the only thing to keep in mind. Or to be aware of, I should say. If you remember at the beginning, I said there's some courses that you can take that will count towards your John Molson degree once you arrive with us. There's only a maximum of 3 classes you can take, technically, and that's Marketing 201, which will be directly converted immediately upon entry to COM 223, which is Intro to Marketing. The other course that you have access to is COM 213, which is Computer Visualization Tools for Business Analytics, and COM 214, which may be a requirement to you if you've been exempt for both Math 208 and 209, and it's known as Business Analytics. You can have an idea of what the prerequisites are, which are here. When it's written co-requisite, it means that you can take COM 213 alongside Econ 201, alongside Econ 201. When it's a prerequisite, that means it needs to be previously completed even before you begin taking that particular course, which is COM 214. One thing that popped into my mind that I would like to clarify is if you're part of an engineering program or a science-based program, you are required to take courses that are a bit more scientifically oriented, which is Math 203 and Math 204. Only one of those science-based mathematics will be considered equivalent to one of our mathematics, and that's Math 203. So if you've completed and only completed Math 203 at Concordia University, not outside of Concordia University, that would be considered equivalent and comparable to Math 209, which means you are not required to take Math 209. In fact, you would only be required to take the missing math class, which in that case would be Math 208. Now, I know a lot of it is a bit confusing. And if you ever kind of are unsure of your particular scenario and you want to make sure that you're not taking the wrong classes, you can always book a meeting directly with me where I could look over your particular case and ensure that you're on the right track. I think to be aware of is that if you look at the courses that are available, offered by John Molson, that are available to all students in particular, you'll notice a wide range of courses that are available. But in fact, 98% of all of our courses that are offered to students outside of John Molson, or available, I should say, to students outside of John Molson, 98% of which will not be considered, recognized, or transferred by the time that you arrive. The names of the courses might be identical to the names of the classes we might teach our own students, but these courses are severely watered down for students who have no business background, no mathematical background, and therefore they don't follow the standards of a true bachelor's of commerce or a full business degree with us. So if you're taking that class, don't think that that class with the exact same title is going to be considered comparable to our course with the exact same title. They're not. These classes that are listed here in particular are not going to be recognized at all. It's as if you've never taken those courses. So if you plan on doing a full bachelor's of commerce, that's your main goal and objective, is to graduate from John Molson. Do not take that class. It will not be recognized, nor be transferred, nor credited. So it's as if you've never taken that course. Now, don't view it as a complete and utter waste of time, because it's not. I mean, you're still going to be touching some few concepts that are going to be seen in the courses that we offer our own students. You could almost view that as a preparatory course, a very light preparatory course. But don't think that it's going to be counting towards your degree or being transferred. Now, how do you submit an application as an internal degree transfer student? It's slightly different than when you first applied to Concordia University. It's really done fully internal. So the first thing you do is that you will go towards on your student account or your student portal. Once you go in there, you'll see the academic portion, enrollment portion, where that's where you tend to actually register for courses for the fall and winter. If you go under academics, that's when you're going to see your unofficial transcript, which I said at the beginning is very important for you to be aware of where you currently stand as the time that you're considering applying or transferring to John Molson. And then at the bottom here, you'll see an admissions application tab. That will bring you to the internal degree transfer application portion of the degree. You go in, that's the application portal. You click apply now. From there, you'll have multiple scenarios. The one that if you're part of a full bachelor's degree program, the one that you want to select is this one, your current Concordia undergraduate student who wants to transfer into another bachelor's degree program in another faculty. But if you're part of a certificate program or you're an independent student, then in that case scenario, you'll be clicking the first one, which is the undergraduate student one, or you're part of a certificate or bachelor's degree. Certificate or independent student who is interested in transferring either into another certificate or a full bachelor's program. But essentially, if you're a full degree program student and another different program though than John Molson, and you're considering transferring to John Molson, this is the tab that you would select. Once you click on there, you'll then have the ability to select the main degree that you want to choose, and that's going to be there. So you select Bachelor's of Commerce. This one is an example of someone who's interested in doing accountancy, but you're going to have a list of all of our programs that are available to you. If you want to join our very prestigious and extremely well-known cooperative educational program with a current 98% employability rate immediately upon graduation with Canada's top employers, you would have to click on I would like to apply into the co-op option. Now, keep in mind that entering the co-op option is more competitive, and you do need to have a minimum CGPA to even be considered not admissible with a CGPA of a 3.0 out of 4.3. So to be considered for John Molson, you need a 2.7, and to be considered part of our prestigious co-op program, you need to have a minimum of a 3.0 or higher. Then you would then have the ability to submit attachments or any type of documentation. Now, we have all of your records, so you do not need at all to submit any documents if you don't want to or you don't feel like it. It's not required. Now, the documents is only suggested for students who are near the cutoff or at the cutoff. In that case, we then tend to recommend students to submit a letter of intent or a motivation letter, kind of explaining who they are, what they went through, how they've overcome their various challenges, and why they think they're now prepared to take on the challenge of John Molson. So what have they learned throughout their time waiting for that transfer? It's very important. No more than 750 words, between 530 and 750 words, a one pager that you could then attach as a PDF to your particular application. Other thing that's also recommended for people who are near the cutoff or at the cutoff is to submit 2 letters of recommendation by professors or supervisors, someone that could attest to your hard work, your competence, your resilience, your ability to problem solve, things like that. And it's important that there's a signature of the person endorsing you at the bottom of that particular letter, and you can submit that as well as a PDF. Now, some supervisors and professors do not want to provide that letter directly to you as a student, and in that case, it's important to connect with me so that I can give you the contact information for the admissions assistant officer that can then attach it to your file on behalf of that supervisor or professor that's endorsing you. So that at least, if they feel more comfortable not necessarily letting you the ability to read that letter yourself, that's a possibility. Now, keep in mind that that application will never be submitted or sent to our office until the application fee has been paid. If you haven't paid the application fee, even though you've completed the entire application, it's never been sent to our office. It's never been considered. So it's important that you pay the application fee that's dedicated and outlined. Once it's paid and you submit the application, only then will our office receive it and start processing the application in question. You want to see here that it's written submitted. That's the key portion. At a further later down the line, if anyone would like to have a bit of a breakdown of each of our particular programs that we offer, so the main specializations that you could get at John Molson, have an understanding of the types of concepts you'll be learning, the various expected jobs you could get upon graduation, and the expected first year entry salaries that you could get. I could go over that and then find what might be best for you based on your particular needs, ambitions, and desires. Now, if you remember at the beginning, I informed you that we've completely launched and revamped our curriculum. In fact, we are, as of the time of recording, the newest and most updated curriculum in Canada when it comes to the business school, since it's fully revamped, to adapt to the current industry standards. So John Molson has a strong industry connection, presence, and partnership. And based on the feedback that we received from them, we've adapted and revamped our curriculum to make sure that it's still as relevant today. Ever since COVID, to be frank, a lot has changed, and we launched it in 2023 after COVID to align ourselves with the industry standards. Now, we've added a few courses that are of high relevance. The first one is the business analytics course, specifically the computer visualization tools for business analytics. Now, we received feedback from our industry partners that there was a steep learning curve for our recent graduates entering the workforce in learning typical industry-wide analytical software. So we've put that part of our curriculum. So you're going to be learning a whole bunch of industry standard software that's used to do business analytics. So that's Power BI. A typical one, obviously, that everyone knows is Excel, but in much greater depth, and how to utilize Excel so that everyone that graduates from John Molson will have that minimum skill that is highly in demand by current employers, particularly in the North American market. The other thing is innovation management. Now, things are changing at an exponential pace. New things are currently always being integrated, things that we cannot necessarily foresee all the time. For a great example, when I was a business student myself, AI wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now, and now AI is being used on a day-to-day basis in business and pretty much everything that we do. So to kind of understand how to tackle new scenarios, new business problems with things that you've never seen before, like artificial intelligence, for example, we're teaching you a specific infrastructure, a mindset, a way to tackle those particular situations. And that's what innovation management is, to give you a strong problem-solving skills. Now, we also have an additional course called Problem Solving and Critical Thinking Skills, which are soft skills that employers are demanding as a bare minimum for recent graduates in commerce. Now, a lot of our students could develop those skills by taking advantage of our hands-on learning opportunities, also known and advertised as experiential learning, learning by doing. There's 1,000 opportunities there for students, especially at the John Molson School of Business. That's what's our big selling point. But there are some students who haven't taken advantage of those opportunities and therefore didn't develop the soft skills that are highly in demand by employers. And we want to make sure that we have a minimum standard no matter what when it comes to our graduates at John Molson. So we've integrated the two most important and valuable skills that employers are looking for, which is critical thinking and personal, what's the other one? Critical thinking and personal, what is it? Interpersonal, there you go. Critical thinking and interpersonal skills. Those are the ones that are of highest value currently by employers. I'm sure many of you know that a lot of things are being automated, especially things that used to be considered IQ, or the ability to retain information. All of that has been slowly being taken over by computers and automation. So employers are shifting and valuing students with more human, soft skills that are much harder to develop in a traditional classroom environment. And therefore, that's the biggest reasons why it's super, super, super important that you take advantage of all of our experiential learning opportunities that we provide access to our students to have once they arrive with us. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing as well is our stronger focus on business law ethics, social responsibility, and business sustainability. So there's 2 courses instead of 1 class. Those are a few changes that we've added to our curriculum. Now, before I end today's presentation, it's important to keep in mind the actual main deadlines to be aware of. So if you're interested in joining in the fall, you need to submit an application by March 1st. Now, many of you who's thinking about joining in September would probably still be doing some of our admission requirements in the winter term, which is entirely normal. This is more and needs to be widely viewed as a seat reservation deadline. So we know you're still satisfying some of our admission requirements, so we're not going to provide you an answer until that semester is completed and your final grades are posted. Only then will we provide you an offer of admission or a letter of refusal. The reason why we're still considering you while you're completing some of our admission requirements is that we know that if you get everything done by the winter, you will satisfy one of our main requirements or criteria where you need to have everything completed 1 semester prior to your intended start, which is the fall. So we know that you will have that portion satisfied. If you're interested in joining in the winter, then the application deadline would be November 1st. Now, most students who are interested in joining in the winter, at the time of application, they should have all of their admission requirements satisfied by the end of the summer. So if we notice that you are doing any of our admission requirements in the fall term, when you're submitting your application by November 1st, you will receive an offer, a letter of refusal immediately. So it's important to know that if you are submitting an application by November 1st, that you must have had everything completed in the summer. So you shouldn't be doing any of our admission requirements when you're submitting the application for the winter entry. Another thing to keep in mind, all of our offer of admissions are conditional, meaning that if let's say you submitted an offer of admission on March 1st, you receive an offer, let me restart. Let's say you submitted an application on March 1st and you received an offer of admission for fall entry. And you're like, yay, I would like to take advantage of taking some business classes because I feel like I'm behind over the summertime. If for whatever reason you underperform over the summer and your cumulative grade point average or your CGPA goes below the 2.7 cutoff over the summer, even though you've been offered an offer of admission, you've accepted the offer of admission, that offer of admission will be retracted if your CGPA goes below the cutoff during that period of time until you're officially fully declared on the term dedicated on your offer of admission, which is the fall. So for that particular scenario and reason, that's the reason why I tend to suggest students who receive an offer of admission not to do anything until your official declaration date on the offer of admission begins. Because once you're declared, the declaration date, you're a full John Molson student. You're not going to be kicked out because your CGPA is below 2.7. Something to keep in mind. Alrighty. So again, I hope that helped a lot in terms of getting a better understanding of what our application process is, the admission requirements, what they are, and various tools that you could take advantage of in order to understand where you currently stand prior to even arriving to John Molson. Now, if there's additional questions that you would like to go over or additional clarifications, or you really just want to make sure that you're on the right track, you can send me an email directly to my personal business email at jeremy.harrison-lalande@concordia.ca, or you could try to book an in-person meeting with me so we can have a one-on-one meeting. Now, at the time of recording, I could tell you that this particular booking link is already booked, so it's hard to get particular times with me. So it's suggested to begin the process by sending me an email to see if most of it could be done by email. And if not, then I'll try to squeeze you in a particular date to meet one-on-one. Yeah, I hope this was quite useful. It's important to know as well that if you're watching this video and you have not attended a true internal degree transfer information session, your application may be blocked just because you haven't attended an information session. So it's important that you attend one of those physical information sessions. And if you're unaware of where to locate them, how to register to them, and how to attend them, once again, you could send me an email directly. All right, take care.